Guys, I do apologize for the inconvenience. There was a technical difficulty and I just got disconnected. So sorry. My apologies. So we discussed defend. Remember, to defend means to do something in order to protect. The noun form is defense. Everyone, defense. Defense means the act of protecting someone or something. Okay? So, the act of protecting someone or so the noun form is defense. For example, in Britain, the defense of the country has historically been left to the Navy. So it is the Navy's responsibility to defend the country. Or we say a firm commitment to the defense of human rights. Or the first line of defense is a smoke detector. Or we say the immune system is the body's defense against infection. Well, the adjectives defensive. Defensive, everyone, means used or intended to protect someone or something against attack, for example. Defensive. Well, the opposite of defensive, everyone, is offensive. So, opposite of defensive is offensive. For example, the prince drew up his forces in a strong defensive position. Or the rockets are a purely defensive measure against nuclear attack. Guys, the noun form of defensive is defensiveness. Defensiveness. The adverb is defensively. Defensively. It means in a defensive way, in a protective way. Well, another adjective is defenseless. Defenseless, as you can see. Defenseless, guys, means weak and unable to protect yourself from attack or harm. For example, a defenseless old lady. Defenseless. Defensible. Defensible is another adjective. A defensible opinion, idea, or action is reasonable and you can easily support it, everyone. Defensible. The opposite is indefensible. Defensible, the opposite is indefensible. For example, a morally defensible prison system. Defensible prison system. Guys, the adverb form of defensible is defensibly. Defensibly. By the way, we say to be, to feel, to look, to seem, to sound, or to become or get defensive. For example, whenever anyone mentions women's rights, he gets rather defensive. Or we say to be indefensible or to find something indefensible. I find such behavior indefensible. Alright. Next we have confess, and the noun form is confession. To confess means to admit, everyone, to admit. And Confession means a statement that you have done something wrong. Confession. Well, the collocations, we confess to doing something. I have to or I must confess, admit. Make a confession, get a confession, or sign a confession. Confession by, confession from, of, to. Force a confession out of somebody. It means make someone confess. So force a confession out of somebody, make someone confess. And get a confession out of somebody. Now, some example sentences, everyone. Well, confess, as I mentioned, means to admit, to acknowledge that you have done something wrong or illegal. We say confess to doing something. Edwards confessed to being a spy for the KGB. So confess to being. Occasionally, people confess to crimes they haven't committed just to get attention. Confess that. My husband confessed he'd been having an affair with a woman in his office. Not a good thing to do. Or torture was used and she confessed. Marsha confessed that she didn't really know how to work the computer. He confessed to having a secret admiration for his opponent. Well, I have to confess or I must confess. Everyone, I have to or I must confess means I admit something that is slightly embarrassing. Okay? For example, I must confess I don't visit my parents as often as I should. So not a good thing, let's say. So kind of embarrassing. Well, guys, in everyday English, people usually use admit rather than confess. So admit is more common than confess. For example, I know it was him. He admitted it. Or I admit I'm not very good with money. I'm not economical. I'm not good at money, managing money. Well, the noun form is confession. Confession. So confession means a statement that you have done something wrong or illegal or embarrassing. David's confession was read out to the court, or a confession of, for example, robbery. At 3 a.m., Jules broke down and made a full confession. Or, I have a confession. I like Britney Spears' music. You make a confession. The police interviewed him for 5 hours before he finally made a confession. Get or obtain a confession. Threats must not be used in order to obtain confessions. Sign a confession. He had signed a confession in front of witnesses. Force or get a confession out of someone. The police forced a confession out of him. A confession by. And a confession by the defendant. Confession from. A confession from the prisoner. Confession of. A true confession of a terrible crime, or confession to. A confession to murder. All right. Next, everyone, we have prosecute. Prosecute means to charge someone with a crime. Prosecute. And the noun form is prosecution, which means charging someone with a crime. The collocations, guys, prosecute someone for doing something or for something. Prosecute someone under a law or under an act or etc. Anyone, act, A-C-T, means a law that has been accepted by Parliament or Congress. Okay. So, prosecute. Prosecute means to charge someone with a crime and try to show that they are guilty, especially in a court. Shoplifters will be prosecuted. Or Boxon is being prosecuted for assault, for something, for assault. Or prosecute someone under a law or an act. The company is to be prosecuted under the Health and Safety Act. Under the Health and Safety Act law. Prosecution, the noun form, means when a charge is made against someone for a crime. When someone is judged for a crime in a court. For example, a criminal prosecution. Or Walters could face prosecution for his role in the robbery. For him. Or the prosecution of war criminals. The prosecution of war criminals. Or the evidence is not sufficient to bring a prosecution against him. By the way, guys, the phrase the prosecution means the lawyers who try to prove in a court that someone is guilty. So, the prosecution means the group of lawyers. The chief witness for the prosecution is the chief witness for the group of the lawyers in a court. Alright, deprive, deprivation, and deprive. Well, guys, deprive means to prevent someone. To prevent someone from having or doing something. Deprivation, guys, means the lack of something, the shortage of something. And deprived, as the adjective deprived means not having something that is necessary. Okay, deprived. And the collocations, we have extremely or severely or totally deprived. Guys, they have almost the same meaning. So extremely, severely, or totally deprived of something. Extreme, serious, severe, emotional, emotion and emotional. Economic, related to economy. Material, things, items. And social deprivation, social, related to society. Sleep, food, oxygen, deprivation, lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of oxygen. Experience or suffer deprivation. Now, example time. Yeah? So, everyone, deprive someone of something. As I mentioned, it means to prevent someone from having something, especially something that they need or they should have. For example, a lot of these children have been deprived of a normal home life. Poor guys. Deprivation, the noun form, means the lack of something you need to live comfortably, to be happy, to stay healthy. Sleep deprivation can result in mental disorders, mental illnesses. We have social, economic, emotional deprivation. For example, low birth weight is related to economic deprivation or the deprivations of prison life. Deprived, guys, means not having the things that are necessary for a comfortable and happy and easy life. Deprived. Deprived children tend to do less well at school. Poor, underprivileged children, deprived children, tend to do less well at school. We have deprived areas, guys, deprived neighborhoods. There are a lot of poor people, deprived people. For example, our deprived inner cities. Well, we feel deprived, everyone. For example, we say emotionally deprived children, or a child, or let's say children who are deprived of love, they don't receive enough attention, protection, and love. Deprivation, for example, an area of social and economic deprivation, or a study of the effects of sleep deprivation, or we experience or suffer deprivation. Many of the people suffered terrible deprivation. Okay, next part, everyone, intrusion, intruder, and intrusive. Well, to intrude means to interrupt someone or to become involved in an annoying way. Intrusion means when someone does something that affects your privacy. Intrusion. Intruder means someone who enters a place illegally. Intrusive means affecting someone's personal or private life. And we have government intrusion, media. Media means TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, internet. Press means magazines and newspapers. Intrusion on something. Unnecessary, unwanted. Unwanted again means unnecessary. Unwarranted intrusion, everyone. Unwarranted. Unwarranted means not reasonable, not necessary, not appropriate, unnecessary. And unwelcome intrusion. Unwelcome means not wanted, unwanted. Forgive or pardon my intrusion. Pardon. Be intrusive, prove, seem, or become intrusive. Then extremely, a lot, fairly, somehow, overtly. Overtly means openly, not secretly, overtly. Openly, not secretly. Unnecessarily intrusive. Unnecessarily means in an unnecessary way. Well, the examples. So, everyone, intrude means to interrupt someone or to become involved in someone's private life in an annoying and unwanted way. For example, would I be intruding if I came with you? Or employers should not intrude into the private lives of their employees. Great idea. Intrusion. Intrusion means when someone does something or something happens that affects your private life or your activities in an unwanted way. For example, I resented this intrusion into my domestic affairs, or the unwelcome intrusion of the press. Intruder means someone who illegally enters a building and area in order to steal something. The police think the intruder got in through an unlocked window. Or it can mean someone who is in a place that shouldn't be there. At first, I felt like an intruder in their family. I felt I shouldn't be there. Intrusive means affecting someone's private life or interrupting them in an unwanted and annoying way. For example, they found the television cameras too intrusive. Or I really resented his intrusion in a family matter. Or media intrusion into the lives of celebrities. An unwarranted and unwelcome intrusion upon the singer's privacy. Or planning permission was refused on the grounds that the proposed building would be visually intrusive. Alright, well, next we have intricacy, intricate, and intricately. Intricacy, everyone, means the complicated details of something. Intricacy, it is a noun. Intricate means having a lot of small parts and details. And intricately is the adverb form of intricate. Well, the collocations, guys, extremely means very a lot, fairly, somehow, amazingly, and highly intricate. Highly intricate. Or we have comprehend. Comprehend means understand, learn, and understand intricacy. So, intricacy, or when we say the intricacies of something, means the complicated, the difficult, complex details of something. For example, the intricacies of private banking, the intricacies. Intricate means containing or having many small parts and details that all work or fit together. For example, intricate patterns. The adverb intricately, intricately woven fabric, woven in a complex and difficult way. Well, we say an amazingly intricate structure, yeah, an amazingly intricate structure or a highly intricate situation. Intricacy. I've never mastered the intricacies of cricket. I've never comprehended, I've never understood the intricacies of soccer, for example, or the intricacies of teaching. Well, the last, intensify, intensity, intensive, intense, intensively, and intensely. Well, intensify as a verb means to increase something. By the way, the noun can be intensification, intensification. Intensity means the quality of having a strong effect. Intensive means involving a lot of activity, effort, or attention. Intensive. Intense, having a strong effect. Well, the adverb form of intensive is intensively, and the adverb form of intense is intensely. Well, greatly means a lot. Dramatically, again, a lot, very rapidly, quickly, intensify. Highly and very intensive. Decrease means reduce, lower, or grow in intensity, grow, increase. Intense feeling, intense emotion, intense heat, intense cold, and intense pressure. So, intensify. Intensify means to increase in degree or strength, or make something to increase in degree or strength. In June, the civil war intensified. It increased. His mother's death intensified his loneliness. And as I mentioned, the noun form can be intensification. For example, an intensification of fighting in the region. Intensification. Well, the noun form is intensity. Intensity means the quality of being felt very strongly or having a strong effect. For example, the intensity of the hurricane was frightening. The intensity of the hurricane was frightening. Intensive means involving a lot of activity, effort, careful attention in a short period of time. Intensive. For example, a 1 week intensive course in English, kind of crash course, a 1 week intensive course, or a day of intensive negotiations, a day of intensive negotiations. Well, everyone, we have intensive farming or intensive agriculture. It means farming or agriculture which produces a lot of food from a small area of land. The adverb is intensively, so intensive and intensively. Another adjective is intense. Intense means having a very strong effect or felt very strongly. For example, young people today are under intense pressure to succeed. Or the intense heat of the desert. The pain was so intense I couldn't sleep. Or he took an intense interest in all religion matters. Or a look of intense dislike. Intensely is the adverb, guys. He disliked Kate intensely. We have intense pressure. The Prime Minister is under intense pressure to call a general election. Intense competition. There is intense competition for places on the course. Intense heat. He could feel the intense heat of the Egyptian sun. Intense cold. He was shivering with intense cold. Intense pain. She felt an intense pain in her right shoulder. Intense pleasure. Anne read the letter with intense pleasure. Intense desire. Fred felt an intense desire to punch Max in the face. Or intense interest. The police are aware of the intense interest in the case. Intense dislike. He had taken an intense dislike to Robert. Intense activity. The opening of the restaurant was preceded by a period of intense activity. Intense debate. Abortion has become the subject of intense debate. Intense feelings or intense emotion. Her lips trembled with intense emotion. Or for intensify, we can say the fighting in the area has intensified sharply. The extreme cold seemed to intensify. The reform served only to intensify the poverty of the poor peasants. Or highly intensive courses for business and professional people. The sun beat down with fierce intensity, or he studied the report with great intensity. An intense conversation, guys, an intense conversation. As we waited for the winner to be announced, the excitement was intense. Every car was stopped and searched, which caused intense annoyance to the drivers. And he is a little too intense for me. It would give me intense pleasure to beat him at tennis. And some of these young people are under intense pressure to succeed. And very intense exercise may actually be bad for you. Well, enough examples, I suppose. Alright, well guys, here you're supposed to complete the sentences using the correct forms of the words from the table we just discussed, the words here. Number one, the dizzy feeling in her head intensified and she knew she was about to blank out. Well, dizzy, everyone, means when you feel dizzy in the picture, You feel as if everything is just spinning around you. You feel dizzy. So you can't just balance. You may just fall down. She was about to, guys, she was about to means she was going to. She was going to. Blackout means faint, pass out, to become unconscious. So blackout, pass out, faint, to become unconscious. Number 2, lasers are used to cut intricate designs in the metal. Intricate, complicated, let's say well designed, intricate. Number 3, it was difficult to see as the intensity of the falling snow was increasing by the hours. So it was snowing heavily, the intensity. Number 4, Alex had invited her to look at his financial files. Guys, we say financial or financial, both are correct. So his financial files anytime she wanted, and yet it seemed an intrusion on his privacy. Well, financial, everyone, is an adjective. It means related to finance, money. Yet here means however. Yet, however. So it was an intrusion, something unwelcome, on his privacy, being private. Private, privacy. Number 5, Brandon's feelings about the event were intense even after all those years. So his feelings about the event, about the happening, were intense, great, after so many years. Number 6, for some reason you wish to deprive me of our former friendship. For some reason, everyone, some here means a, for a reason, some for a reason, you wish, you want, you'd like to deprive me, to prevent, to stop me of our former friendship. Former means before, previous. Number 7, the police have decided not to prosecute because the evidence is not strong enough. So prosecute someone, to charge someone with a crime. Evidence means proof. Wow, that's it. We're done. Mission accomplished. Again, sorry for the inconvenience. You need to watch 2 videos. I mean, video number 10 and this video. Okay, to just get the whole picture, the whole message. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Thanks for accompanying us. This is your teacher, Mr. Mazlumi. Until next session.